I just, I just, I just speak my peace, keep my peace.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to episode 92 of the Speak My Peace podcast. As always, I'm your gracious host, Greg Lacey. Like we always do about this time, I hope that this episode is reaching you all in good health. Hope that you all are still taking care of yourselves as we continue to battle this coronavirus. I know things is opening back up. Majority of the world is open back up. But moving forward, we have to take better care of ourselves than we have in our past, just as a result, just to prevent what we have been going through for the past year and a half or so. Welcome to all my first-time listeners. Welcome back to all my regular listeners. What's good to my YouTube viewership? Thank you all for tuning into the Speak One Piece podcast. Again, I can't stress enough how important your viewership and tunership is to me. I feel like I summered y'all to death the past two episodes, and I planned on doing it again this episode, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna touch on a couple things, and we're gonna keep the show moving. I'm not gonna keep on doing it, but those past two episodes, I feel like they were very heavy. Last week I didn't record just because the only thing I really had to record was stuff that was surrounding death, and as a result, I'm not gonna overdo it this episode. But again, thank you all for tuning in to Speak On Peace podcast. Happy belated birthday to my pops. Happy birthday to Malcolm X, one of the greatest inspirations to me. Rest in peace to Paul Mooney, who passed away today. Just those two names, man. Y'all know on this podcast, I big up Malcolm X as much as I can, just because of the inspiration he was to me, or the inspiration that he still is to me. And just the courageousness, the braveness, the do-it-yourselfness, the self-teachingness, is a huge and important factor in why the Speak On Peace podcast continues to run today. That goes without, mentioning. As much as I big him up, I feel like y'all should know by now, but that's just a huge inspiration to the things that I speak about on this podcast, and the reason why I decided to speak about them, and the reason why I decide to shed light on certain things that you won't find people shedding light on anywhere else. That's the reason why this podcast is always going to be a safe space for our people, the unheard and the always spoken for, I should say. So once again, happy birthday to Malcolm X. Rest in peace to Paul Mooney, a pioneer, a legend. They call him the Godfather of Comedy. When we speak about, inspiration, this man, he is that. I mean, this is another one of those that whose career, transcended generations. This is someone who, I laughed at or laugh with. This is someone who my parents laugh with. This is someone who, their parents laugh with. That type of career, no matter what field we're talking about, is something that you can only hope and dream of. And he is someone who has left a huge impact on the comedy world, I should say. He wrote for the best of them. He wrote on the Richard Pryor show. He wrote Sanford and Son. He wrote on Sanford and Son. He wrote for Sanford and Son, I should say. In the latter seasons of In Living Color, he wrote on there. We know what he did for the Chappelle Show. These are all staples in black families, transcending generations. These sitcoms, meant very much to our people. Not even just our people. I don't want to pinpoint and minimize his career there. What he has done, he's done a lot for everyone. His work was appreciated by people of all colors. But just that, going back to his career, just transcending across generations. When I speak about, when I spoke about John Witherspoon, I was speaking the same sentiments. This is someone who gave John Witherspoon his first break. When he was writing on the Richard Pryor show, a lot of people got their first break on the Richard Pryor show as a result of this man, giving them that platform. John Witherspoon was one of them. Robin Harris was one of them. And the list goes on and on. A lot of people who got their big breaks because of this man. So rest in peace to Paul Mooney, a legend. Just like I speak about Malcolm X, the things that, I decide to speak on this podcast, the things that I decide to shed light on in this podcast. Paul Mooney is one of those people. I can't say that he inspired me directly, but the people who inspired me were inspired by Paul Mooney. Like, he's your favorite comedian. I think about, the skits on the Chappelle Show. The reason why he was even in the Chappelle Show is because of what he meant to Dave Chappelle. And in my generation, Dave Chappelle, he's a GOAT. He's bar none. And that's who we look to as a pedestal. And Dave Chappelle, I've been seeing videos all day long, just him bigging up and him, giving props to Paul Mooney to what he did. The sacrifice that Paul Mooney made. Paul Mooney was, one of the greatest writers that we've ever seen. And this man sacrificed his stardom to speak about, racism in this country. A comedian. You think about comedy, people speak on whatever they want to speak about. And, that one thing that you really, really couldn't touch on, you can talk about, what goes on in a black household and, the stereotypes of black people, and the entire world can laugh. But you start to shed light on the disparities amongst races. You start to, shed light on racism. You start to shed light on prejudices. You start to speak of black power, and people start to turn their head and not pay attention. And Paul Mooney was a forefather in comedy. He shed light on all those things, and as a result, he didn't have the big career that we saw Richard Pryor going to have. He didn't have the big career that we saw. Well, I'm not going to say he didn't have the big career. He didn't have the stardom that we saw Richard Pryor gain, the stardom that Eddie Murphy gained, the stardom that Martin Lawrence, Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, so on and so on. He didn't gain that large stardom because of the things that he decided to shed light on. And for that, we are forever in debt for him, because that's a sacrifice for our entertainment. And that shouldn't go unnoticed. So once again, rest in peace to Paul Mooney, a pioneer, a legend, an icon. Like I said, my favorite comedian, and probably your favorite comedian. Rest in peace to Paul Mooney, and happy birthday to Malcolm X. It's sad that those days fall on the same day, but it's also great that we get to celebrate two legends, two icons on the same day. Said I wasn't going to suffer y'all to death too much, so I'm only going to cover a couple topics. Another thing I want to say, rest in peace to my young cousin Isaac, who was murdered 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago. It was Mother's Day weekend. It's just unfortunate. Like, I spoke about all those things in episode 90, and then somewhat shed light on episode 91, and just all those things surrounding death that was consuming me. And I told you all, like I had a weird feeling. Not that I had a weird feeling like something was going to happen, but I didn't even want to talk too much about it, because I felt like, as much as I was speaking on it, eventually something, was going to resonate with me too much. And then, the conclusion of those 2 episodes, and then I find out, one of my relatives was murdered. It wasn't one of my closest, and that doesn't matter. We were related. And this is a young black man whose life was taken, and it's very unfortunate, but we deal with the stuff time and time again. And me coming off the heels of those past 2 episodes covering those things, it just like, it felt bad. Like I felt bad just reading that his life was taken. It was just like, it was heartbreaking. It was honestly heartbreaking. It was like I got to a point to where I was overwhelmed, just covering all the things I was covering and reading all the things I was reading, and then for it to hit home and then deal with the culmination of the anniversary of all these deaths in my family. Spoke about that summer 2016, and then to read this, it was just like, it was like I had a sense of hopelessness. So once again, rest in peace to my cousin Isaac. That I read that news, and then the following day I read more news about some shootings that happened. There was one that happened in New York. There was one that happened in Miami. People got into an argument. One thing led to another, and people started discharging guns. In New York, There was a 43-year-old woman, 23-year-old woman, and a 4-year-old girl who were all hit as a result of this discharge of this weapon. Those 3 victims, those had no relation to each other. They were just pretty sure just in New York and Times Square, enjoying the day. When the weather is good and you can roam through New York and Times Square, it's a great feeling. And these people, lives were threatened because of pride, ego, men not being able to come to terms with someone potentially having power over them, I'm guessing, because that's usually what the result of that is people get into an argument. Somebody may feel like their pride or ego was threatened, and so they want to cause harm to someone else. We see this time and time again. Not to brush over that, because I definitely don't want to brush over it, just like the 3 victims that were hit. But that same day, same thing happened in Miami. It was reported that in a mall, and I don't know the identification, I know the names, I don't know the ages of the people who were hit in Miami, but the same thing happened in Miami in a mall. Some 2 people or a group of people got into an argument. One thing led to another. Then the guns discharged and 3 people were hit. And it's just like, again, I get back to that term, heartbreaking. It's like, when does it stop? I don't know if it ever stops, because pride is such a huge factor. Pride plays such a huge role in the lives of men, and it always, when you don't know how to control it and you have too much pride, it always has some negative effect, some negative connotation, some negative repercussions as a result. And we saw that firsthand with these 2. Sorry for my YouTube viewers. During this episode, I'm going to have my head down because I'm trying to check the scores of these NBA play-in games. The Grizzlies just beat the Spurs. We're going to speak on that later. And now the Warriors and the Lakers are playing. 4 minutes into the game, Warriors up 12-4. But get back to what I was speaking about. Just pride. Like, we know that saying, that pride being the downfall of many men. I can't come to terms, I can't fathom, what would lead to the decision to attempt to take someone's life as a result of a scuffle, as a result of an argument. And I'm not alone. I'm not alone in that. But that thinking and that process is something that's common. Many lives were taken because someone may have gotten beaten up. Someone may have felt like their pride or ego was hurt. And so the only repercussion or only payback they can get is the ultimate payback and taking someone's life. Again, I'm not alone in that thinking. But the thinking, on the other hand, of the person who was executing these things is definitely, it's not something that's that's not common. Like, we see it time and time again in our communities, and I don't know if we ever move away from something like that, but I hope that we can. And the only reason why I'm just bringing all this up, because I'm wrapping up that 3 episode conversation I was having just around death. I told you all I wasn't going to stumble you all to death, no pun intended, but that was just in my head, in my mind, just like that was my 3 weeks. I gave you all literally an insight to, mentally what my 3 weeks look like from episode 90 to now episode 93. I know this is like 4 weeks because we skipped last week, but this was last week that all these things happened, and so I was dealing with it real time. Moving on to even just the thinking of, for my listeners, the reason why I find out a lot of these things, I speak on here often about, I watch news. I watch the news in the morning. I read the news. Someone may be listening to this and say, okay, if you keep seeing all these things covered and it's like, the common theme is death, someone's life been taken, why don't you stop, playing devil's advocate? Why don't you stop reading or watching the news? My response to you is that a lot of people, they have that mind state in regards to, viewing the news or reading the news, is that they just don't do it because, for one, they feel like the news lie. And for two, they believe that the news only covers negative things. Both of those things are partially true. Not whole truth, not the half truth, but they are partially true. But for me personally, I don't watch the news to have an opinion shaped by someone, or I don't watch the news for someone to stroke. No, I don't know. Say stroke my ego, or to meet an agenda. I watch the news just to be informed. Like, I refuse to be the last person to the party for anything. And what I mean by being the last person to the party is that I refuse to operate within this world, or navigate within this world, and not have an idea of what's going on in the world. Like, if I'm going to LA for the weekend, if anything happened in LA, like if there's a string of events that happened in LA for the past week, I'm going to know how to navigate in LA. If I decide to hop on a plane and go to New York, if there's something going on in certain parts of New York, I would like to know. The reason why it's going on can always be debatable. The reason for the things that happen is always debatable. Like I said, it's three sides to the story. One person's side, the other person's side, and the truth. Another thing is that in that same instance, if I'm traveling somewhere, if there's a malfunction with my car, granted, I'm going to get a safety recall from the car company. But let's say that the car company hasn't caught on yet, and there's people who are reporting to these news outlets, and the news are reporting on these malfunctions. I would like to know before I hop in my car and try to drive down the street. And that's why I watch the news, just to be informed. I can, create my own opinion. I can tailor my own agenda. I can come to a conclusion on a lot of things with research. But the main reason why I watch it is just to be informed, just to know what is going on, where, when, and how. Everything else that comes with it, I can deal with it. So again, yeah, I probably, can not watch the news and then not see all these things, but all these things are still going on in the world. Like I was speaking about a couple episodes ago, people can't go to the mall without, potentially losing their lives. People can't go to school without potentially losing their lives. People can't go to, a place like Times Square, a tourist attraction, without potentially losing their lives. People can't go to movie theaters without potentially losing their lives. People can't drive their car without potentially losing their lives. It's like it's so many things that threatens our lives in this world. And I'm of the mindset that I always want to be informed so that I know how to operate. Like, even without all this information, without all these stories, I'm already paying attention anyways. But I want to pay more attention now that I know that there's these strings of events that are happening within these areas. Now, I told y'all that I wasn't going to slumber y'all to death, and that's that. To move on to more things in terms of media, J. Cole has released his fifth album. Sideline Story, Cold World Sideline Story, Born Sinner, Forest Hill Drive, For Your Eyes Only, KOD. His sixth album. J. Cole has released his sixth album, titled The Off Season. I spoke about it in the last episode as well, as we were leading up to the release. It was just announced at that time. Now it's out. And this album rollout just had me thinking that I'm going to say, at least in my lifetime, I know that hip hop is young, but I haven't been around for the entire term. Well, I don't even know if hip hop is young, because we're about to celebrate the 50th year of hip hop this year. But I say all that to say that, I, in my 28 years on this earth, and seeing, technology evolve, seeing media evolve, seeing the way this stuff is covered evolve, I don't know that I've seen a better album rollout than what J. Cole just executed with this album. Take it back to 2 weeks ago. and this all happened within a week span. 2 weeks ago, on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, J. Cole announced that he was releasing his 6th studio album, The Off Season. We got the album cover and we got the announcement. Fine, people have been anticipating J. Cole for a while, anyways, because there's rumors that he was going to be dropped, that he was dropping soon. I think he was supposed to drop earlier, or he was supposed to release a single earlier. I probably shouldn't be speaking on this because this is like confidential information, but I know that. Actually, I'm not going to say it because I don't want nobody coming back and like, wait. But J. Cole's supposed to be dropping sooner. I'm just going to say that. Whether it was an album or it was a single, J. Cole was supposed to be releasing something months sooner, and for some reason it got pushed back to May. Which, me personally, I'm not complaining. I know we're dealing with COVID. I know how things, how that has affected a lot of things in media, especially music. With album rollouts, people are, I spoke about it in episode 90, people are scared to like release certain things because of, how do they market an album? How do they, get out into the world? How do they interact with fans? All that has been threatened by COVID. And so he announced this album. And the one thing that I, just appreciated the most during this album rollout was just how J. Cole has handled media. And for anybody paying attention, for any aspiring artist, this is the way you do it. When you're putting anything out into the world, no matter what it is, you want to touch as many people as possible within your core audience, but you also want to welcome in new audiences. And you do that by introducing new things. You do that by expanding your horizons and the people that you're touching. You do that by expanding your targets. A lot of times, those things aren't always thoughtful. Those things aren't always successfully executed because a lot of times people go into things like that and they're misinformed of what that audience is. You may have an audience of, let's say you got an audience of 35 to 40-year-olds who are J. Cole fans, and you are casting a wider net and you're trying to, reel in an audience of 30 to 60. You can widely miss your target because that audience is too broad and you're not really, really targeting the people who should be penetrated, who are welcome to becoming J. Cole fans. And I like to say, and excuse me for getting like a little nerdy, for those of you who don't know, I do work in media. That's why I do like kind of have this idea of or the reason why I believe I was thoughtfully executed. Go back to the album release. This was a Wednesday, not the album announcement. This was a Wednesday. He says that he's going to He announced that he's releasing the 6th album. Thursday comes along and he says, I was just going to drop the album by itself, but forget it. I'm going to drop a single. This was Thursday. Friday comes and he releases a single. The single is an interlude. For those of you who don't know, interludes are little, pockets of an album, or it used to be. I don't know what you would define interlude as now today, but a lot of times they're served as transitions. A lot of times they're served as the piece that merge the previous track to the next track. A lot of times it's just like a break within the album. That's literally what an interlude is a break. So he releases an interlude. I'm not one to play into like the charts, the iTunes charts, because I understand those things are misleading. But the only reason why I'm speaking on this now is because he released an interlude. The song is about 2 minutes long. There's no hook, there's no chorus, no catchy beat. It's literally just this man rapping for about 2 minutes, maybe less. And it goes number 1 on the iTunes chart. That right there sets the tone for, what the album is going to do. And I'm not going to speak in album sales when I get into this rollout. I don't know what the album sales are. I don't know if they've been reported yet or not. But that's just important to note because of who J. Cole is and the criticism he's been getting. Like, J. Cole has been getting a lot of criticism for the past couple years for the past 2 albums. I remember people were saying stuff about Forest Hill Drive that I won't say here on this podcast because I'm a J. Cole fan. And I'm also a St. John's alumnus, just like him. I'm not going to shit on my St. John's alumnus. But I remember when For Your Eyes Only dropped, a lot of people had a lot of negative things to say about J. Cole. They was ready, to like basically give up on him. KOD dropped. and people double back on what they were saying. They said even worse stuff about him when KOD dropped. And so I remember having a conversation with a friend that was like, if J. Cole don't deliver on this album, it might be over for him. Me, personally, I know that that's not true because of who J. Cole is. Move away to St. John's, bias, whatever the case may be. J. Cole is a rapper. He's a great rapper. He's great at what he do. And he has been doing it for over a decade. Bring me to, back to this chart stuff with the interlude. He releases an interlude and it does very well on the streaming service charts. So that tells me that not only one, people are really, really anticipating new J. Cole music and just music in general. But also, that people are really taken to what he released. So that's what the interlude told me. This was Friday, going to the weekend. Actually, he released the interlude on Friday, and he released a documentary the day before that. The documentary was basically just, actually, I'm messing up the rollout. Okay, he released the interlude on Friday. The following week, he releases a documentary. It was a short documentary, just going to the process of, these past couple of years and what he's been doing in his break from, the mainstream media, and how he has been, garnering or crafting up this album and the conversations he was having with people and the mindset that he got into people. That's good enough. The greatest thing about documentary is that people are vulnerable. And so as a fan, if one of your favorite artists, one of your favorite entertainers, they release a documentary, whether it's 10 minutes long, whether it's 30 minutes long, whether it's an hour, you're going to be intrigued by it, because especially with someone who's such a recluse as J. Cole is, you're like, oh, this is what he's been doing. Oh, this is what he's like in a normal setting. This is what he's like, outside of the flashing lights. This is who he is, wholeheartedly. And that always does well, whether you're a fan or you're not a fan, to see like raw emotion, to see people in their raw settings. Because a lot of times we forget as fans that, these artists are human beings, like they're real human beings, and we miss that a lot of times. So the documentary does well. It opens that door to like that personal relationship that J. Cole has been established with fans, from the Dollar and Dream tours to the 2014 Forest Hill Drive rollouts, with him visiting fans' homes and things like that. J. Cole is probably has done that the best as far as touching his fans, like really getting out there and touching his fans. So this is the release of the documentary. Following the release of the documentary, it's announced that he signed a contract to play pro basketball in the BAL. For those of you who don't know the BAL, it is the African, what is the correct word? It's the African I don't want to say subcategory. It is the African component of the NBA. So the NBA established an African pro basketball league, and the league just started this past week. But after the documentary, the announcement was that J. Cole had signed a contract to play for one of those pro teams. I speak about, going back into touching, extending his core base. So now you have people in Africa, you have people in nearby Europe, you may have people in Asia who are paying attention to this pro basketball league in Africa, because, outside of the United States, those are the places and continents where the pros come from. Europe, Asia, and Africa. So you already have these people paying attention to this league, because this is like the next big continent to have a pro league that, people that may be like that farm system to, get pros to the NBA. So you have this big news of this big time, music artist signing a pro contract. So now people are intrigued. Take it back to the concept of the offseason in the first place. J. Cole has been, running this basketball concept, this basketball theme, since he first came onto the scene with his first album, The Come Up. And then, I'm not his first album, his first mixtape, The Come Up. Then the following mixtape, The Warm Up. Then Friday Night Lights. And now we have the offseason. J. Cole, even his first album, The Sideline Story, J. Cole has been including these basketball references in his lyrics. He has been including these basketball themes within his albums. And he has included, basketball just things within his apparel as well. So that's another thing. So that's big news. You know, we have this big American rap star signing a pro contract to play for an African team. That's extending, touching more people. More people who may not have known him before. Somebody would say, "What? It's a American rapper who is signing to play, pro basketball. Let me go see what his music looks like." And just so happened that the same day he releases the album is the same day he has a basketball game. The man is a genius. Anyways, he signed to play for the Rwanda, not Rwanda. Was it Rwanda? I think it was the Rwanda Patriots in the BAL. Next thing comes is, I think it's like Tuesday or Wednesday, he drops a freestyle with LA Leakers. LA Leakers is one of the premier places that rappers go to freestyle as of today. You know, we have the Flunk Flexes, and we have, I don't really know who we have. We have Funk Flex, and then we have LA Leakers. And some of the better freestyles over the past 5 years has come from those 1-2 places. LA Leakers in New York and LA, and Funk Flex in New York. And he releases a freestyle on the LA Leakers, platform, and that's extending. We have this down south kid, or this down south rapper, who has, backings from the East Coast because of the time he spent in the East Coast, but also the style of rap that he has. And then he's on this West Coast LA platform rapping one of the best, freestyle verses we've seen in a while. Again, extending that reach, extending that platform. And then following that, the album drops the next day. I'm not going to give you all a review on the album, but it's a great album. If I had to rate it right now, I give it a 4 out of 5 on the scale of 5. It's a great album. I don't have too much to say. I'm not disappointed in the album. It's great rapping. It's great production. And it's everything that I wanted from J. Cole. It reminds me of the J. Cole that I was first introduced to in 2008, when he was just rapping, and he's back to that. So I definitely appreciated that. But following that, the day after that releases, he's featured on a podcast with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has a podcast called The Etceteras. And J. Cole is featured as a guest the day after his album releases, the same day that he has his first pro basketball game. Again, keep paying attention to just his rollout and the places he's touching and the fans he's touching. He has this basketball themed album. He's now a professional basketball player. He's from the South, but he went to school in the East Coast. He got signed to one of the greatest rappers, he got signed to the greatest rapper ever, so he has that East Coast backing, and he's just expanding his reach vastly across many places and many continents and many different fans. Yeah, the rap fans, the basketball fans, you have the young kids, you have the basketball fans across continents, you have the basketball fans in other countries, just garnering all this traction, garnering all this media towards him. And then following that, he finally plays in his first basketball game. And while he's playing in his first basketball game, what kind of shoes is he wearing? You guessed it, his own signature shoe. One thing I left off in this list, it was that he was featured on the cover of Slam Magazine. Slam Magazine is like one of the most popular basketball magazines to date, and I believe he may have been the first rapper to be featured on it. Just think about all those things that I touched, all those things that we've covered within this rollout. It's unbelievable. I don't know if anyone has touched more audiences than he did. And I don't know what his album is going to sell, but I know that is going to serve him well. Just thinking about all those things that we touched, from him announcing on social media to him releasing a 2-minute song and it doing so well, to him signing a pro contract overseas, to him starting in the game wearing his own shoes, and him being on a magazine cover that a lot of young kids, two generations after him, watch or read, I should say, or follow, I should say. To him being featured on the cover of that, to him doing the one freestyle that he did during his rollout was on the West Coast. What else am I missing? And him playing in his first basketball game, I feel like it's more things that I'm missing. To him being on the podcast of, one of the greatest basketball players in the game right now. To him releasing a documentary, it's like he touched so many channels and so many avenues and so many fans and so many demographics that I'm not sure any album rollout has ever done something like this before. Like, I don't know. Well, I guess J. Cole core audiences like me. I think that within that age range, like 28 to maybe 33, probably not even that wide. J. Cole core fans are probably like within an age range of like 28 to 30, 31. He definitely hit every mark. I know all of my friends listen to it. I know all my friends were talking to it. But I know even the younger demographics, I know even the younger generations were talking about it. And this is like when we speak about media, and again, I hope that didn't sound too nerdy covering all this. But we think about things, we think about like things like hitting a mark and missing targets. I think that man checked everything off of his list and he executed well. And just for him to be signed to a apparel company like Puma and to be wearing his own signature shoe in his pro game, like, this man, he's going to go down with his impact. He's going to go down as one of the greatest ever. Whether people want to admit it or not, he has to. But even still, speaking on that sports subject, and we're going to get out of here. The NBA playoffs are here. I don't have too many predictions for you all, but the NBA playoffs are here. As I said a couple minutes ago, early in the episode, the play-ins are going on. The last of the play-ins are tomorrow and Friday. I'm releasing this episode on Thursday. Tomorrow and Friday are the last two of the play-ins. The Hornets are out, which I'm bummed about because I wanted to see LaMelo in the playoffs for sure. The Spurs are out, which I'm bummed about because I'm such a huge fan of DeMar DeRozan. And right now, the Warriors are up 3 on the Lakers in the second half. But the Lakers should probably win that game. But and I apologize to my YouTube viewers. My head is down because I'm looking at the bracket so I can make my predictions. I'm only gonna make my Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals predictions. I don't know what the finals are gonna be looking like. But for the Eastern Conference Finals, the Nets are going to make it. There's no way that team does not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I do have them winning it all, but I'm not going to go that far. I'm just going to say for right now, the Nets should make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. In round 1, they play the Boston Celtics, who they should beat. In round 2, they're either going to play Milwaukee or Miami, whoever wins that series, which sucks because I originally had the Nets meeting one of those teams in the Eastern Conference Finals. So it sucks that that's going to be the round 2 matchup, but so be it. So my Eastern Conference Finals are going to be the Nets and the 76ers. And I hate to say that because I don't have too much faith in Doc Rivers as a coach. And I don't have too much faith in the 76ers as a team and organization. Just because they haven't been able to get it done in the past years with those two stars. But I think this year they have their roster is clicking. I think they may have a better coach than they have had in the past years. I don't have too much faith in Doc Rivers getting to the big stage and winning it. I think those years are past him. But, I mean, as far as making the conference finals, he should be able to do that. Hopefully, he don't make the same mistakes he made last year with the Clippers. So the Eastern Conference Finals, I do have Brooklyn and 76ers. Brooklyn should win that in a 5-game series. I think Brooklyn's biggest test is going to be the second round. Whoever wins that Milwaukee-Miami series, it's going to be Brooklyn's toughest matchup. Beyond that, I don't have faith in anyone else. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see. Moving over to Western Conference Finals, this should be the year that we finally get that LA Western Conference Finals. I don't see why we wouldn't, unless the Clippers lay another egg, and then after that, I guess that's it. Like, I don't know if you blow up the Clippers. I don't know if Kawhi leaves or what. But even though the Lakers are planning to play in and they're losing right now, you don't go against LeBron James. Whether he make it to the finals, I don't know. I think, health of that team is the only thing that will prevent them from making it back to the finals. But at the least, that team should make it to the Western Conference Finals. If they beat the Warriors tonight, they play Phoenix tomorrow. They play Phoenix in the first round, and then the round after that, they play the winners of Denver and Portland. If they lose today, they have to play Memphis in order to play Utah in the first round. I also have them beating Utah. So as I said, I have the Clippers and the Lakers making it the LA Conference Finals matchup, unless injury permits the Lakers from making it that far. I wish, Phoenix will make it that far. Only thing the only reason why I don't have Phoenix making it that far is because of that big man play. I don't have too much faith in DeAndre Ayton, and I'm a big fan of Chris Paul, and I'm a fan of Devin Booker. So I would love to see that team make it far, but I'm not sold on DeAndre Ayton as the big man. So I think you put him against someone like AD, you put him against someone like Drummond, and Drummond sucks. Put him against someone like Jokovic, put him against someone like Kanter, or what's old boy name? Yusuf Nurkic is in Portland. I think that he doesn't get the best of that matchup, but the rest of the matchups even up. Like with the Lakers, the point guard matchup with Phoenix, it evens up. With Portland, the point guard matchup with Phoenix, it evens up. You go into the wing matchups. All those things are even. Obviously, Lakers have the edge because they have LeBron. But then you get to the big man matchup, and it's lopsided. So I don't see why we don't get that LA matchup in a Western Conference Finals this year. The Clippers should blow through Dallas. They shouldn't, I know Luka has gotten the best of Paul George this year and last year, but they got to stop that. This has to be the year that, they at least make it to the conference finals. Utah is a good team, but I don't have Utah making it to the conference finals either. I think injuries is on their side as well. I think Utah is a well-coached team. I don't think that this is the time yet that Donovan Mitchell leads that team to Western Conference Finals or even NBA Finals. And I'm a big fan of Donovan Mitchell, but I think that right now is not that time. I think he's still getting that experience. I think that he needs a little more experience under his belt. And not to saying that, he's incapable of doing it, but I think that things like that shape who you are, as you grow older or as you grow into your career. He's had big games, he's had big moments, but I think that he needs that type of loss. He needs that type of adversity in his career to propel him further. I think that he is a leader of that team, or I think that he should be the leader of that team. I'm not sure he's exactly the leader of that team yet. I don't know what the locker room talk. I would guess that Mike Conley right now is the leader of that team, but I think that if they lose this year in the first round, second round, I think that Donovan Mitchell, he adds that tool under his belt to where he's the voice of that locker room. And I think once he gets that and his team rallies behind him, then they'll prepare to be, one of those in the Western Conference that, is going to the Western Conference Finals and going to the NBA Finals. And that's all my predictions for the NBA. I'm trying not to make this a sports podcast. I know early on I tried to. Early episodes, I tried to. But that's all I'll have for y'all this weekend. I appreciate y'all tuning into the Speak on Peace podcast. Take care of yourselves. Stay vigilant. Stay very aware. Vigilant and aware is the same thing, but do both. And again, take care of yourself. Your mentals, your physicals, your people, all that. Just take care of yourself, man. We living in a wicked world. We living in wicked times, and so it's just important that we take care of ourselves. Before we do get out of here, not my best kept secret. We stopped doing that. My what to watch for this week is 144. Once again, my what to watch for this week is 144, which is a documentary on the WNBA bubble this past season. Such a great documentary. If you have ESPN Plus, watch it on there. If you have ESPN, it should be coming on. They've been replaying it the past couple of days. So once again, my what to watch for this week is 144. That's the Speak My Peace podcast for this week. I'm out.